F sharp, A sharp, revisited.
Boop, boop, boop.
That was the count-in from Joe to us recording. Hello, welcome to F sharp, A sharp, revisited. I am Nick.
I am Joe, the music critic superhero.
Yes, I am the fine, upstanding citizen, is that right?
It's something like that.
Maybe you should just stick to doing the introductions rather than me. This is going to be a very short podcast because, one, me and Joe have had pretty shit months. Two, I've got stitches in my tongue and talking probably isn't best for me. But
sympathies to Nick, everyone.
we bring you the content because we're professionals.
We are professionals and we love our audience.
Three, this is our third attempt at recording this podcast after 40 minutes of footage was lost the second time and 5 minutes of footage was lost. No. Basically, we've lost loads of footage. Is it footage? Recording.
Oops. Oopsie.
So, yeah.
So we're going to blitz through this one.
This is going to be a positive podcast where we
it's gonna
talk
be
about things
wholesome.
that we like, but we're going to talk about things that we like very quickly.
Yes.
So let's start off. American Football with their new
Yes.
album, American Football,
Yes.
also known as LP3. This is the third album from the cult emo turned cinematic rock quartet. It's 8 tracks, 47 minutes long, and it sounds lovely.
It is very atmospheric and very lush, and their compositional style I would describe as very maximalistic. This is my third time saying this.
The production on this album is very clean.
Yes, it is.
That's the third time I've said that. Right, so enough of the joking around. I think that it does sound great. The production on it is very clean, along with the guitar work is so clean as well. It's very crisp drums on the album. The bass never gets lost in the ocean of noise and instead plays a brilliant role in grounding the compositions. They're great at layering guitar melodies on top of each other, which has always been their signature.
But with their layering on layering, sometimes it's not so good. There are a couple of tracks on this album where it does feel to me as though they're layering nothing on nothing. I'm looking at the tracks Every Wave to Ever Rise and Mine to Miss. I'm looking at those, looking at you, where the guitars just kind of feel like the individual parts aren't that interesting. And so when they all come together, it just feels a bit meh. But then there are other tracks on the album where the individual parts are so interesting in and of themselves, and when they come together it creates something beautiful.
I'm looking at you, Heir Apparent.
Looking at you, Heir Apparent, where you've got this fading in and out of guitar, these lovely piano flourishes, the flute that comes in, it all comes in a very serene, graceful, lovely, layered, textured way, and it is beautiful. It is like a perfect cheesecake.
But there are some tracks on the album that promise these wonderful sort of moments that don't really capitalize on them. Silhouettes, I think, is a pretty good song. It's definitely not my least favorite on the album by any stretch, but it starts with this really quite interesting glockenspiel section, adding more notes on as it repeats each phrase, but then just sort of leaves it and goes on to do something else.
I kind of feel like the guitars coming in kind of drowns out some of the potentially more interesting elements that the track started off with. So I think kind of stripping back might have actually worked for the band a bit better in that song, but it's still a good song, I would say.
Other things that I think they've done quite well with, well, I mean, Mike Kinsella's voice, for example, has improved over the years. It may not be quite as endearing as it used to be, but I think as they've gone with this new direction, the fact his vocals are a lot more clean, less scrappy than they used to be, I think works well, which is a bit more than can be said for some of the guest vocals on the album. They're not exactly bad, but the French vocal sections in Every Wave to Ever Rise,
Je ne comprends pas.
Sure, they're there.
Je ne suis pas un hamster.
They're just sort of there.
Yeah.
But on American Football's most radio-friendly single probably ever, Uncomfortably Numb, they got Hayley Williams.
Lovely Hayley.
Queen of the vocal melodies. And I think that, while I wasn't so sure she'd be great on this track from originally hearing she was going to be on it, I think she does an amazing job. I think her vocals fit really well, and the way that they harmonise with each other and they swap over the lead and the call and response chorus is just so lovely.
What I will say to the people listening, this isn't a typical Hayley Williams performance, I would say.
It's more of a Julian Baker, Hayley Williams performance.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it fits really well. So favourite tracks are Uncomfortably Numb and Air Apparent.
Same. I also really enjoyed I Can't Feel You as well. But yeah, those are my favourite tracks, and I think those are the tracks I'm going to be taking forward from this album.
Yeah,
I think.
the only track I was sort of less fond of on the album was Doom in Full Bloom, which has a brilliant climax but takes far too long to get there and doesn't really justify it.
But at least it has a nice trumpet in it.
Yes, not as good as they've had in the past. But you know, I like that the trumpet is back, so yay.
Yay, trumpet.
I would give this album a 7 out of 10.
Yes, I am also going to put a 7 out of 10 on it.
Hooray.
Rah.
Let's talk about the next album, Joe.
What's the next album?
The next album is The Comet is Coming.
The Comet is coming.
The Comet is coming.
The Comet is coming. We're all going to die.
With their new album, Trust in the Life Force of the Deep Mystery.
Yes.
This is 9 songs and 45 minutes, and it's the second album by the Space Jazz Trio.
Space Jazz.
Space Jazz.
Love the way this band sounds. They're so unique because you've got they have a saxophonist called King Shabaka.
That's a great name. This is the first time you've mentioned that in the 3 times we've recorded.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the conversations just didn't go that way before, but they've all got interesting names. I mean, the drummer is called Betamax.
I can't believe that now on the one where we're trying to be brief, we're focusing on what their names are.
And the synth person is called Danalog.
Danalog.
I love that.
Okay,
anyway,
that's putting my score of the album up. Anyway, they've got such an incredibly unique and super vivid sound palette.
Like the saxophonist very, very often plays a lot of riffs that are based on rock rhythms but jazz licks, which I found a very interesting combination and approach to his playing. You've got a lot of electronica synths, a lot of house beats combined with acoustic drumming. There are so many unique combinations in this album that I can't help but be enthralled by what they're throwing at me track after track.
Yeah. If I had to describe what this album sounded like, I would say it's like the future retelling of an ancient alien war at the dawn of time.
Yes.
And it just sounds great. The performances on this album are pretty great, and they provide this urgent sort of energy, which it just keeps you on the edge of your seat. But they're also capable of restraint and grandiosity in equal measure. This sort of leads to my first little complaint on the album, though, which is that I think I might have liked a little bit more technical skill to be shown on the track, because there's clearly the potential for it. But I feel like a lot of the time, the more showy bits on the album are just sort of 2 or 3 notes repeated, and I would have liked just to see a little bit more from them. I
can understand that the solos on this album. Well, there aren't many. It is very much a riff-focused album, and I'm fine with that personally. I like that, but I can see your point of view.
And this is sort of more a problem for me than it is for you, because I know you didn't feel this, but a lot of the tracks did just get a little bit too repetitive for me, and I think just having that extra element of showmanship would have improved them. I'm not going to mention which track is the main culprit because I don't want Joe to scream at me. So how about you talk about why you love that track?
Well, the thing is, I love all of the tracks. I mean, are you going to be here forever if I go through?
It's Birth of Creation. It's just a bit too repetitive for me. But it has a really nice clarinet passage.
But then the kind of electronic elements, I think, really help that track. And there are a lot of kind of dance-influenced tracks on this album as well. Birth of Creation, Summon the Fire, which they have just this very unique energy to them. And I do think they keep the momentum going in those tracks. Often halfway in, there'll be an extra layer of intensity coming in. The sax will go an extra little bit wild, and it's great. And following that is Blood of the Past, which is probably the heaviest song on the album. It's got this lovely kind of King Crimson, similar to King Crimson, distorted bass and sax combo, which I just love. And
I think that the second act of the album, ranging from Summon the Fire through to Time Wave Zero, is pretty much flawless. Like if it had just been that and a bit of a shorter album, I might have been like, okay, I want more, but it's so good. I think
it's
that
brilliant.
My favourite track on the album, Super Zodiac, is just sort of an amalgamation of all the best things about this album. It's possibly the most ambitious track. It's got these super sharp drums and a great use of 6/4 time. The sax is pretty unhinged towards the end of the track. It adds this really frenzied sort of passion to it. And the chorus section has got such a great chord progression in it. It just makes you feel like you're soaring through space.
To me, a lot of this album is pretty I mean, it's pretty epic, but it's also pretty moody as well. But this song, Super Zodiac, it has this warm quality to it as well, which is a very nice change of pace from the first 4 tracks. And it's a very lovely moment in the album. So yeah, I like that track as well.
The other 2 tracks I just want to mention quickly. Summon the Fire is where things really start to kick off on the album. It's the 3rd track.
Oh, it's dance jazz extraordinaire.
A jance. It's a jance. The drum fills on it are so good. The bass synth is just really simple, but the tone of it is so effective in the track. And then you've got the glorious sax.
Yeah.
And the other one I want to mention is Time Wave Zero, which has ridiculous drums.
Oh, the drums! Oh, the combination of electronic and acoustic drums is just
like
the drums. So good.
The drums are one of the best things on this album, which you wouldn't expect from one where the sax is so like center stage. But I think the climax on that track is just another I'm zooming through a wormhole moment.
Yeah, it's great. I also like the softer cuts towards the end of the album as well.
Astral Flying,
which
is great.
It very much is kind of adjoined to the previous track. I think it kind of flows out of it, and it feels so serene and graceful after the more intense nature of Super Zodiac. Unity and The Universe Wakes Up, I think, I personally think are really good tracks as well. Nick didn't seem as convinced by them.
I didn't dislike them at all. I just felt like the bookends of the album they're just a bit weaker.
The bookends of the album, they are designed to be a little bit more ambient, because the theme of this album is very much birth and rebirth, which you can hear through the kind of the tracks of this album.
You're doing that thing again where you're like, your opinion's wrong because it's deliberately like that. And now I'm just like, oh, maybe you're right.
But just to read some of the track titles, because the end is really the beginning.
You mean the chapter titles?
Yeah.
Because this is a story.
The chapter titles: The Birth of Creation, Summon the Fire, Blood of the Past, Super Zodiac, Astral Flying. It has this theme of like birth, rebirth, and then life throughout the middle. That the kind of ambient bookends do work. And the first track, I do think, is very good at setting the mood, and the last track kind of brings things back, and it still has those great drums in them. So
I do like me some great drums.
Oh, they're flipping fantastic.
I would give this album another 7 out of 10, though it does have potential to go up to an 8, and it's one that I find incredibly fun to listen to, and I will probably listen to throughout the year.
I have loved listening to this album. It started off as a kind of, what do I think about this album? 7 out of 10-ish kind of thing, but I've grown to love it more and more. It's gone up to a strong 8, possibly 9 out of 10. It probably is my favourite album of the year so far, ? So I personally love it and would recommend it for anyone wanting something a little bit different.
Let's move on to the 3rd album of this podcast.
Yes.
It is Grey Area by Little Simz.
Yes.
And that is a little, not a lil.
Yeah, just to clarify, because there are so many rappers who are just like Lil Pump,
I'm pretty
Lil
sure
Wayne, Lil.
Besides I think Lil is probably the most common used word in artist names.
Yeah, very, very annoying.
So anyway, this album is the 3rd album from the UK hip-hop artist Little Simz. It's 10 tracks, 35 minutes long, and it is great.
Brisk album, and also very good album.
Yes. So the biggest thing I want to mention on the album as being great, Little Simz has a fantastic flow.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the way she delivers her lines, shows real conviction behind every word. The example I brought up before when we recorded this twice was on Wound. She describes this harrowing tale of a friend being murdered, but with such stone-faced deliberation. And because her lyrics on the album aren't overflowing with symbolism, or that they're not overly open to interpretation, what she does deliver is crafted for maximum instantaneous impact.
Impact and poignancy. Yeah, the example I would pick is from Pressure, where she just her delivery is so good. Me trying to do it would not do it justice, but I'll just read out these lyrics. I'm just glad that my young-born kids won't have you as a daddy in this life. Hold your L, you prick. F you. You really thought you was a G in this life. And it's so fast and it's so impactful.
Joe did not do that justice. You need to hear her actually sing it.
It's so angry, and I'm just like, oh, yeah.
So
it's great.
Other part of the album I want to mention is the beats on the album are a bit of a weird one for me, because they're not particularly complex, but they have this style and production flair of someone who is attempting to make them more complex. Like, she clearly wears her influences on her sleeve. Like, there is a lot of, I guess, Kendrick in this example. I can see her trying to strive towards that a bit. But, you know, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for her.
Well,
But, like, say, for example...
Let's talk about Venom.
Yeah, Venom.
Because I feel like that's a track that really makes the most of what it has. It starts off with this very ominous bed of tremolo strings, which is very ominous, and she has this absolute rhythm perfect verse. She ends it with the word venom, and then it drops into this do 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 do. It's kind of like a drop, but it's also not really a drop, and it also sounds fantastic, and it's my favourite song on the album. So
you've got some other great moments as well, like the ending of 101 FM, which is my favourite track. I mean, that song's got a very sort of oriental flavour to it. And the ending of it has a sort of a nod to pirate radio stations, which is one of the ways that grime music became big in the UK, with the presenter, the DJ, talking over the track. And like, Little Simz, we're loving it.
101 FM.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, two other favourites of mine were the first two tracks, which I think were two of the most striking. Boss has that hook. Don't need that stress. I'm a boss in a fucking dress. It's
great.
It's great, and I really like the details in Offense. I mean, Little Simz, her flow is just absolutely non-stop from start to finish of that song, which I absolutely love. And then there are just like these little instrumental bits that come in and out, slightly more orchestral section, and then there's this bit where you got this cartoon running sounds, which always makes me smile whenever it comes on. So that's two great tracks.
One of my favourite tracks on the album is Selfish, which is not the most hard hitting song on the album, but it's a sort of, it exemplifies my next point, which is that the guest spots on the album are all singing. Then there are no guest rappers, which I think is a really good decision, because the album's only 35 minutes long. It needs to be her front and centre.
It focalises her as the main selling
Selfish
point.
You've got this brilliant vocal performance from Cleo Sol doing the hook, and I think that all of the hooks that are sung on this album are pretty great. The only one I want to mention is Sherbet Summer. A really catchy beat again, and it justifies its length as being the longest song on the album, because the verses tell this story of the song in three parts, through the first verse being her anger at the individual she's addressing, second verse is her anger at herself, and then the third is finally acceptance. I think it's well-rounded. Yeah,
this is where my opinion differs from Nick slightly, because I think those two tracks that you mentioned, they take a more kind of low-key, almost jazzy approach to them, and for me personally, I can think of other artists that do that sound better, and it kind of makes me think, does Little Simz do this sound as well as these other artists? No.
That's good and all, but you can't complain about there being too much nice music in the world. Just because someone does it better, I could be like, oh, I'm not going to listen to Jethro Tull because I think Yes do prog rock better.
But they're completely different styles.
Well, they're both good. That's what I mean. They're both in the same genre, and they're both good. That was like off the top of my head example. I could probably think of a better one given time.
But yeah, so that's kind of my main criticism of the album. But other than that, most of the tracks are great. I put a 7 out of 10 on this one, maybe up to an 8 if I'm feeling a bit more generous.
I'd give this an 8. I think this is one of my favourite albums of the year so far. And thank you, Little Simz, for that.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep going. We've got one album left to talk about.
Yes. We have Flowers at the Scene by Tim Bowness.
His 7th album. 11 songs, 42 minutes long. Tim Bowness is 55 years old.
He's 55. He's been around.
Yeah, he's practically a dinosaur.
But Stephen Wilson remains forever young.
Yeah. So Stephen Wilson is a producer on this album, so naturally it sounds incredible.
Yes.
Like anything Stephen Wilson touches turns to auditory gold. This is I'd describe this album as art rock rather than prog rock, though.
Yeah,
it's quite a lot of the songs on it are sort of ballads, and even the more aggressive songs have quite dreamy textures.
Yes, it's a very soft album, very luxuriant album, I would say.
Yeah. A lot of lush instrumentation.
Oh, I love lush
There's such
instrumentation.
a very wide variety of choices of instruments. So you've got horns, you've got
Yeah.
strings, you've got synths.
And it keeps things very varied, I think, throughout the album, which is nice.
Yeah, and Bowness really knows how to layer his tracks without any particular element feeling too heavy. And
Yeah.
I like that because one of the things that Tim Bowness does that not a lot of other musicians do is he focuses more on textures as focal points of songs rather
Yeah.
than specific like melodies or solos or whatever. So example I put down is the opening track "I Go Deeper" has this synth noise solo on it, which is just great.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think a lot of the best tracks on this album, well, at least for me, were the very, very much softer tracks, like Not Married Anymore, which is so soft and sad.
It's a
well,
decent track.
It's great. I mean, what Tim Bowness does great is, even though his lyrics aren't particularly striking, he paints a particular mood or a scene that at the end of the song does end up leaving an impact. And so describing this scenario of someone's life going to waste after someone's left them was very, very heart-wrenching. And the pacing of the song, the very balladly nature of it, it gets at my heart.
I like the song, but it does also have probably my least favourite point on the album on it. And that leads into a series of other points about things that I'm less fond of on the album, which I'm going to tell the audience about now, Joe, as much as you're glaring at me. You can't stop me. So the first line of Not Married Anymore is spaghetti on the floor. And then there's like 10 seconds of silence. And
well, there's the backing going on.
in the vocals, so that leaves you just trying to interpret this one line with no other context, and it's such a strange line that you're just left there thinking, what? And I think that the main problem with this album is while Tim Bowness his vocals aren't bad and he has a lovely voice and I think it fits with the tone, I think that you could transplant his vocal melodies from one track into the next and I wouldn't notice. And his way of having very secluded vocal lines with sort of large gaps between lines, just it leaves so much room for overinterpretation, and I don't like it.
I think Nick just needs to be more patient when he's
I am
listening
plenty
to this
patient.
album.
I was completely patient with the fact that they have the same sort of thing on American Football's album. I just think they do it better.
Well, I disagree. Anyway, more tracks that I liked. Basically all of them.
The Train That Pulled Away is my favourite track on the album.
It's got this lovely synth, string, and brass arrangement with drums kind of matching the pattern of the train
On the hi-hats.
And once again, I mentioned his lyricism. He paints this picture, and in this song, it's about this pivotal moment that ends up being a regret. And a lot of his lyrics are very bittersweet, and I quite like that.
It's not a happy album.
It's not a happy album. I mean, there's The War on Me, which is basically about, not realizing your dreams, which, I relate to.
That's kind of sad now I think about it, because when I was walking to work and listened to that for the first time, I was practicing my vocal counter melodies on that track and singing along without really thinking what it was about. And
and Nick going to his day job.
Yeah.
Oh dear, but it's a fantastic composition anyway. It's very lush and serene. There's so much detail in the sounds and the production. It's lovely. It's lovely.
I also like the track "Flowers at the Scene," which has a brilliant guitar solo and brilliant drums.
Yeah.
And Borderline is one that has potential to be my favourite on the album, but it's just a bit too short for me. But it's got a lovely use of trumpet and the swelling synths and the vocal contributions to it, which I want to lead that on to my next point, but you have something to say.
There's the flute 2 minutes in, which is also lovely, and it also has the opening lines. You look normal with your mouth shut, almost human in your sleep. That is so savage, and he sings it so softly that I just.
Anyway,
it entertains me.
So the thing I wanted to mention with the vocal contributions is that this album has got a star-studded cast on it of various musicians: Peter Hamill from Van de Graaff Generator, Colin Edwin from Porcupine Tree, Andy Partridge from XTC, and I don't really notice their contributions on it, which just leads me to think, why why? Why have all these people that are famous if you're not going to really showcase them?
I mean, well, it's about the end product, and the end product is great.
Mm. I just would have liked them to stand out a bit more to justify having such big names. It's like imagine if I made a track and then Stephen Wilson just like said the word dog on it. You'd be like, why did you get Stephen Wilson to just say the word dog?
Oh, I would buy that song though.
It's a bit of an exaggeration because I mean they do more than that on this album.
Like Jim's solos are pretty nice in the songs that he appears in. So
all right. But anyway, other than that, I think this album is pretty good. There are only a couple of tracks that I'm not so fond of. It's the World, I think, just feels a bit out of place, and Ghost Like it's not well paced for the longest track on the album.
I would agree with you with It's the World. It feels much more like a straightforward rock song, whereas the rest is far more kind of diverse. And
I don't like the guitar tone on it either. It feels like it's trying too hard to carry the mood.
Okay, fair enough.
But other than that, I do enjoy listening to this album a lot, and there are some great tracks on there. So I would give this a 7 out of 10.
I am giving it an 8 out of 10, and it's probably in my top 5 albums of the year so far. So yeah.
Joe had a better month than I did.
Oh, March was really good for me.
Musically.
Yeah.
Not in any other way.
Anyway, we should
move on to just quickly do some shout-outs.
Shout-outs.
Shout-outs while Joe drinks his water and I actually get up my list of shout-outs. We're well organised, aren't we?
Very organised, yes.
Let me just open my list of 2019 albums. My Excel spreadsheet of glory.
Well, I'll go on and say Devin Townsend's new album was good. I mean, it could have been better, but I mean, if you like prog metal, I think you need to check it out anyway.
If you're obliged to. If you like prog metal, then I'm sorry, it's not been that great a decade for you.
I mean, there's been Haken.
One band. One band.
So
I just think of the oversaturation of really clean, like technical prog metal things like Periphery and no, not for me.
Okay.
What else came out that we can talk about, which was good?
Plastic Anniversary by Matmos.
That was very good. I enjoyed
very
that
nice,
a lot.
Very good electronic, kind of avant-garde music concrete.
Yeah.
Electronic album.
And I think the thing is, you've made me talk about all the things I like on the podcast, and now I don't have anything that stands out as being really good to talk about.
Okay, well then let's put a bow on it.
Okay, I'm going to find something to talk about, which isn't so good. The new La Dispute album.
Oh.
Okay, this is how we're going to end, because I feel like we've got some choice words to say about this album.
It's boring.
It's badly produced, and it's not that interesting. And I don't understand all the praise it's getting.
It's funny because because we go on these websites, you know, Rate Your Music, Sputnik Music, these Facebook groups, all saying, "Oh, it's great, it's great." I listened to it on the day of its release because that's what I do. I listen to the new music releases, or at least as many as I can. And I was just like, "This is so boring." And then I go online to see all these people saying, "Oh, it's amazing. Oh, it's great. Have you heard it?" And I'm just like,
it's funny whenever you mention that it's terribly produced, which is a fact. It's not an opinion, it's a fact. It's terribly produced. They get really defensive about it, and it's really funny watching people.
I will say production isn't the most important thing to me about an album. You know, I prefer good composition.
Yeah, but the mixing is really important when your vocalist is such a focal point of your band.
This is true. Yeah. This is true, but the compositions themselves, they're just not that interesting in my opinion. I was just sat there bored thinking, I can't remember any of this. Like I had a discussion about it on some Facebook group that I'm part of a couple of hours after
Patrician Sharp music posting.
Yeah, and I realised I couldn't actually engage because I couldn't remember any of it.
Yeah.
So I feel. You have anything else to say about it? Or
no, but I'm going to mention that I quite liked Snarky Puppy's new album, Immigrants.
Yes, it was good. I would recommend going with the first 2 tracks, and if you like it, then carry on.
I'd also like to bring up the Pirate Ship Quintet's new album, Emitter, for sort of conclusively proving that post-rock is a dead genre.
Okay, I am going to say one thing because that was a bad note to end on. Me and Nick went and saw Blue Rose Code.
We did. I forgot we went and saw Blue Rose Code,
which was very nice. And I just had a couple of notes about that because it was my birthday present from Nick. So thank you, Nick. The support act had a lovely voice. I couldn't remember her name. So,
I brought her CD.
Yeah. So yeah, she was very nice. And then I was very surprised by Mr. Blue Rose Code because on the poster going in, he was sat against the wall looking very dejected. But then when he came on stage, he was such a happy chappy.
He was such a happy chappy. Yeah, let me just grab the CD so that we can actually say who the support act's name was, because I feel like we should support our small local musicians. Okay, so her name is Zawe. It's Philippa Zawe. It's spelled Zawe. I've got her EP in front of me. It's called Disadvantaged, if you want to check it out.
Yep.
Anyway, Blue Rose Code, he was a cool guy. Really good guitar playing.
Yeah, I mean, there was him, the singer and guitarist, of course, and the guitarist, and they were both very, 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 very good on the guitars.
And they had good stage banter.
They had good stage banter, a lot of great synergy between them, and although I have to say, because I hadn't heard this song of his before, there was a song where he said that he wasn't very good looking, and I have to disagree with him. He is a very handsome gentleman.
He has a lovely voice.
And he has a lovely voice.
His speaking voice is lovely, let alone his singing voice.
I mean, he's got a Scottish accent, and he's a very, very nice one as well, so... So yeah, I very much enjoyed that performance. My favourite that he played was Bluebell. It was very, very good.
Very nice.
Yeah, so yeah.
And with that, we have blitzed through, and it still managed to be 32 minutes, so decent length of a podcast for you guys.
Yeah.
Less editing for me. Yes. But for now, we've got a very special podcast next time.
Yes.
We're going to be broadcasting live from the Gulag.
Yes.
Joe and I are travelling to Portsmouth to go and see James.
Yes, our Gulag keeper. So,
he's finally revealed where the Gulag is.
So who knows what could happen?
Yes.
But anyway, we will see you there and then.
Yeah.
I have been Joe.
And I have been Nick.
Goodbye.
Bye.
F sharp, A sharp,